So back in our project here, in the edit product screen, how can we now handle the user input there? What's a good way of doing that? Instead of manually collecting all inputs with text editing controllers, which we have to assign, Flutter has a built-in widget that helps us with collecting user input and with validation as well. And that's the form widget. The form widget itself is invisible. It doesn't render something on the screen which you could see, but inside of the form widget, you can use special input widgets, which are then grouped together and which can be submitted together and validated together in very simple ways with the help of Flutter. A form takes a simple child argument, and now there you build your normal widget tree, but now wrapped inside that form, and where you can now use special form widgets that, well, help you build more complex forms. So in here, I first of all want to build a scrollable list of input elements. And for that, of course, we can use a column with a single child scroll view around it, or a list view, but now not in the builder mode, but in the normal mode like this, with children added to it. And this will ensure that we can have multiple items below each other, which automatically are then scrollable, because we don't know whether we'll exceed the boundaries of our device on the given device the app runs on, so it makes sense to make this scrollable. Now, one side note about using a list view here, you might want to consider using a column and single child scroll view instead of list view, because list view can actually get rid of some of the elements that are scrolled out of the view, and therefore data input could get lost there. So if you have a longer form, or you do allow landscape mode, as we actually do it here, and therefore you might have less screen height available in your final app, then using column plus single child scroll view might be an option. And in the lecture after this one, you'll find a bit more details on that. So definitely don't skip that next lecture. Now, since I'll primarily use this in portrait mode here, however, I'll go with a list view for now, but again, consider that next lecture to avoid data loss. And now in that list, we can simply start adding our different inputs. And now here, instead of a text field, which we used before, we use a text form field. And that's the special input I was referring to, which works together with this form. Text form fields are automatically connected to that form behind the scenes, so to say, and can interact with it. And you'll see how to interact with the form in just a second. So text form fields are based on normal text fields, and hence you have rich configuration options there, as you saw it before in the course, to set up autocorrection and so on. But you also do have some differences. Whilst you can connect your own controller, you don't have an onChanged listener here, for example. You might remember that earlier in the course, on the normal text fields, we could use onChanged to listen to every keystroke, to every input the user did, and then save that manually somewhere. Here, this does not work. Instead, we can only act on this being submitted, which is when we hit a special submit action in the soft keyboard, on editing complete, and on save, which is an important new method which we can trigger with the help of the form, and which I'll show you later. So the way you get the value out of the text form field differs a bit. Thankfully, you also don't have to add a controller here to get the input, because again, the form will help you get that value and will manage it for you behind the scenes, so to say. So let's start simple and let's add one text form field for a new product. So when we're adding a new product, there we could add a decoration, which takes an input decoration object, which then in turn gives you a lot of configuration options to change the appearance, but also some text on that text input. You can also enable or disable it. Here I want to set a label text, which is basically like that hint text that's shown above the input, where I say title, because this text input field here should be used for entering the title of the new product. Now, always feel free to play around with the other options you have here. There's simply too many to go through all of them here, but you can configure a lot of things. And besides the pop-up here and the IDE completion and the hints you get here in the IDE, the official docs, of course, are a great place to learn more about the options you do have here. For this text form field, besides the decoration, I also want to set a text input action. This controls what the bottom right button in the soft keyboard will show, whether it's a check mark or a done text to confirm that you're done, or a next text or a next icon to go to the next input. And here indeed I want to use a text input action, and text input action is a enum with the value of next. And this will show a soft keyboard with a button that indicates that pressing this action button in the bottom right corner of the keyboard will move to the next input instead of submitting the entire form or submitting this input or anything like that. Now that's it already for this first simple element. One thing I want to do is I want to wrap the form here with some padding of, let's say, 15 or 16 in all directions, so that the form elements are not directly on the edges of the screen. But with that, let's have a look at this before we then continue with it and add more elements which we can focus, submit the data, and also validate the data. So let's first of all make sure we can see that added product screen. And I want to be able to see it when in the user product screen. For now, we click on that add button in our app bar. So here I want to go to the added product screen. Again, I want to use named routing here. So we can simply add our, to the widget though, add our static const route name field here, where we say added product. And now we can use that route name in our route table as we did it before in the course. Let's import screens, added product screen. And with the import added here, let's go down to the route table and of course reach out to our added product screen route name as a key. And then here in the builder function, return a new instance of the added product screen. Now we can go there with push named from inside user products when we click that add button by using navigator of context, push named, not push replacement, but just push named, because I want to push the new page on the stack of pages so that we also can go back to this page from the new page. And then the name here, of course, is fetched from our imported added product screen. Here we refer to added product screen dot route name. Let's save that. And back here, if I click the plus button, I'm now taken here, and here we see the title. I can tap in there, I can type there, and we also see on the bottom right corner of the soft keyboard, this indicates that clicking here does go to the next input. It doesn't do that automatically. We have to control that, and I'll show you how to control that later, but it shows us the right button here. Now that's all nice, and with that, let's add a second input.